In the ER, we handle emergencies, and it always starts with airway, breathing, and circulation. So let's go over the assessments and interventions of the
The ABCs help
ABCs.
us stay organized. Let's get into airway. We'll first discuss assessments, then interventions. As we know, the air we breathe follows a specific path in order to get into the lungs. So when we talk about the airway, we are talking about that path. What we want to know is if this path, the airway, is it patent, meaning it's clear and open, or is it obstructed, or is there a possibility that it may become obstructed? Now, to put it simply, if the patient is speaking, the airway is intact at that moment. Your follow-up question is if it's going to stay intact. Is there any chance that it may become obstructed? But again, if your patient is speaking, the airway is intact. Now, let's continue our assessment. We need to look and listen as well as determine if the patient can handle their own airway. Now, what do I mean by handle their own airway? If they started vomiting or had increasing secretions, could they handle them without assistance or would they choke? A quick reason for why a patient could not handle their own airway would be decreased mentation. Let's continue the assessment. Do you see any visible edema or swelling to the lips and tongue? Any abnormalities to the neck or perhaps any facial trauma? After we do that, let's listen. Can you hear audible stridor, wheezing, or gurgling sounds? These could indicate an airway obstruction from a foreign body, secretions, vomit, or even the patient's own tongue. Now, let's look inside. Is there obvious foreign body, visible blood, secretions, or vomit? Does anything look abnormal? Now, when it comes to interventions, at the top is intubation. Is their mentation so decreased that they need to be intubated? Or perhaps their oral swelling is rapidly getting worse and you have to intubate in order to keep and maintain an airway? Or on the other hand, can you do a simple head tail chin lift or a jaw thrust and open the airway that way? Perhaps also inserting an OPA or NPA, whatever the situation calls for, and provide oxygen via a bag valve mask. You can do this while other interventions are being implemented that can lead the patient to gaining control of their own airway. For example, if the patient came in as an overdose for fentanyl, they gave Narcan, the patient woke up. Now that they're awake, they can handle their own airway. Or perhaps the patient was hypoglycemic, you gave dextrose, and the patient woke up and they gain control of their own airway. Let's continue. Does the patient have any vomit, blood, or secretions that need to be suctioned? That's why it's important that we have suction available so that when it comes to assessing the airway, we can suction things out if needed. And also remember to never perform blind sweeps because you can push a foreign body deeper in. And always maintain C-spine precautions if they're indicated, especially in your trauma patients. Also, remember that OPAs keep the tongue out of the way from blocking the path of the air going in. But remember that if a patient has a gag reflex, you do not want to place an OPA as it can stimulate them to vomit and they could aspirate, which will lead to other issues. Now, when placing an NPA, use plenty of lube, but remember that if there is facial trauma, you should not be placing an NPA. Now for breathing. Is the patient's breathing producing adequate ventilation and oxygenation? We assess their overall respiratory effort. Do we see chest rise and fall? Is it symmetrical? Is their breathing nice and effortless or is it fast and labored? Is it deep or shallow? Is it slow? Is it too slow or perhaps it's too fast? Perhaps they are tripoding. So overall, does it look like they are in respiratory distress? Then a key important piece of information is the pulse oximetry. How is the pulse oximetry? Is it low? Do we need to address it by giving oxygen? And then remember to auscultate. Do we hear good air movement bilaterally? Did you pick up any wheezing, rhonchi, or crackles? But again, most importantly, did you hear air movement when you auscultated the patient's lungs? Please know that if a patient's respiratory effort is increased and labored, but there is minimal air movement on auscultation, you need to act quick because there is probably minimal oxygenation and ventilation occurring. Also note that labor breathing takes up a lot of energy and it cannot be maintained. So keep an eye out for these patients, especially when they can't even get a word out. Also note to palpate for possible broken ribs. Do you see equal chest rise and fall, or do you note a flail chest or no movement on one side of the chest that can be indicative of a pneumothorax? Also, how does the stat bedside chest X-ray look? As for interventions, when it comes to breathing, how is the pulse ox again? Do we need to give oxygen? If so, administer via nasal cannula, a non-rebreather, or a bag valve mask, whichever the situation calls for until more appropriate interventions can be implemented, like high flow, BiPAP, or even intubation if necessary. Other interventions include needle decompression or chest tubes for pneumohemothorax. Now let's get into circulation. With circulation, we need to ask if the patient has good perfusion, and we assess this by looking at the patient's skin color, capillary refill, quality of their pulses, blood pressure, heart rate, ECG rhythm, signs of bleeding, and even mentation. For example, if the patient is awake and alert and speaking in complete sentences, we can assume they are getting adequate perfusion to their brain. On the other hand, if your patient's blood pressure is low, the heart rate is high, cap refill is delayed, and the pulses are weak, the patient may be in shock and in need of immediate interventions. So when the patient arrives, we get them on the monitor quickly, connecting the BP cuff, placing ECG leads, and pulse oximetry to collect these pieces of information as soon as possible. As for interventions, you get your patient on the monitor, get IV or IO access, and consider starting fluids, blood products, or even vasopressors depending on the likely cause of the shock. We address the ECG rhythm if needed. Depending on the cause, you may also have to send the patient to surgery. However, fluids are the typical first-line agent because they are easily available when the patient is in or getting close to being in shock. But again, for interventions, get the patient on the monitor so you get a set of vital signs, get IV access, and consider starting fluid in the other interventions as indicated by the patient's presentation. Now, let's talk about disability or neuro. In regards to the assessment, the gold
All right, we'll stop there. And again, that was the ABCs. The ER, we're going to handle all the emergencies, and it always starts with the airway, breathing, and circulation. Thank you for watching. Like always, teamwork makes the dream work. And here at Emergency Chaos, we are proactive, not reactive.